go. What's up, everybody? Let's talk that Primo shit. This shit's fucking fire, man. Amazing beat. By the way, Blood World, check that shit out. BloodWorldTV.com. Let's go, all right? Inspiration only. That's what I'm rocking with these days, okay? All right. So, Beats That Collected Dust, Volume 3. I listened to this recently and I thought to myself, you know what? Let me cover all the previous Beats That Collected Dust because I've never done a review about it. So, let's talk. Now, for those of y'all who may be familiar, these are tracks or beats that people, I guess, didn't pick up. Maybe Primo made for them and people went, nah, and then they just never got used. And so Primo, kind of like the Lost Tapes idea, decided that he was going to create this series called Beats That Collected Dust, which I think is a great idea, honestly. Again, you know, producers like of Nas's and, you know, that kind of caliber, smart guys. I mean, smart shit inspires smart shit, right? So Nas doing that Lost Tapes was really smart. It was brilliant, and sort of had that idea of like, hey, I've got all this stuff that I haven't put out. That's actually, you know, that could be pretty good. And him and his team figured it out and put it out, and it turns out it's some of Nas's best work. So Primo does something similar, and I love the idea of it because we always wonder, damn, like, what are some beats that you have that no one used that may be fire, right? I wish Havoc would put out a Lost Tapes type thing. You know what I mean? But I've heard that in an interview, Nas, or I should say, Hav used to delete his old beats, which is like mind blowing to me because he might have deleted some incredible shit. As an artist, you always want to save everything, man. Back up your shit, save your stuff because you just never know. It doesn't mean that it has to be used ever again, but at least keep it and store it. You know what I'm saying? The best way you can. Anyway, so Primo puts his stuff out. The best beat, I'm going to just say right up front, in any of these Beats That Collected Dust volumes, is obviously this one, which is New York State of Mind 2. Technically, Primo cheated with this one. Shout out to Primo, because it wasn't like a beat that collected dust. It was used for the immortal NY State of Mind 2. But I understand why Primo put it out, and I really appreciate Primo for putting it out because it's funny. I always wanted this fucking beat, right? Now people talk about NY State of Mind 2 possibly being better than the first one. Listen, I've been saying this for years, that they're on the same level. And I personally prefer to listen to NY State of Mind 2. I'm not going to say which one is better because they're both phenomenal songs. But I've always wanted this damn instrumental. I remember, again, I'm a Primo head. So when I'm listening to Primo stuff, especially back then, I was like, man, like, what the fuck is the instrumental for this shit? Because, again, in that internet era, in the 2000s, you started to see a lot of these Primo beats. They were online and leaking and stuff. I mean, not necessarily leaking, but they were out there and they were being shared. And I was like, man, does no one have the instrumental for NY State of Mind 2? Like, come on, man. So this beat, phenomenal. So Primo did everyone a favor, which is generous of him. He just put it out, like, because he must have known that it wasn't just me. Again, hip hop heads, we think alike. That's one thing about hip hop heads. That's why when it's interesting, because stans go, well, it's just your opinion, Tochi. Well, it's like, it probably isn't. You know what I mean? Probably isn't. A lot of heads probably feel the same way I do because, you know, when you listen to hip hop long enough and you know shit about rap and you're into it, like you kind of, you know, get into a general consensus. It doesn't mean that we're all going to agree on exactly the same thing all at the same time. But I will say this though, the stuff that's amazing, that's really quality, has a way of just achieving a consensus. And it's not forced at all. It's just like, wow, I really fucking like this. I really like this too. And that's usually how it goes. Not, you know, the media, Rolling Stones, you know, shows up before the album comes out and is like, this is, you know, like none of that bullshit. This is a classic and setting stuff up. Now, that's how the game has become, right? For the casuals, right? The point is, this is a great beat. Best beat. But I don't really count it. The best beat to me that I had never heard before, that was a beat that seemed like basically collected dust, that was fire. Let me get into that. Let me go by order. Okay, I will come back to the best beat. Okay, now one of the greater beats that did come out was on Volume 1, Spin Live. I think this is even the first track on Beats That Collected Dust Volume 1. This is a dope beat. This is easily one of the best ones like in the entire series. And what was so dope about it? Well, right away you could listen to it and you could tell. And it's interesting. It ended up becoming two songs. One, it ended up becoming Evidence's Epilogue, which is a fire record. If you ever get a chance, listen to that shit. So that's number one. The other one, I think that You God's Train Trestle, which is You God's best song in my opinion, fire beat. I believe they took this and sped it up and made Train Trestle. That's what I think. I don't know now because they came around the same time, and I feel like Train Trestle came out shortly after Spin Live did, or when Primo released Spin Live. So I think they literally just they just looped the shit and sped it up, which is smart. I've always said that sometimes there's a couple of Primo beats, like Recognize is one of them. In Together Now is another one of them where I'm like, if he just sped it up slightly, it would have even been more fire. There's a couple of those. So again, that's some head shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure some of y'all take that, run with it, and whatever. It's fine. It is what it is. But I've always felt like that. And so when I heard Train Trestle, I was like, oh, they just sped it up. That's smart, because some of these Primo beats just add that little extra spin. It gives it a whole new energy to it. So that was this one in particular, one of the best ones on the volume period. I'm trying to think what else was on volume 1 that was pretty decent. This beat. I'll play this one right now. This is Droopy. I think it's called Droopy or something like that. I liked Droopy. It was okay. It was alright. Has this, when I listen to this, I always think for some reason the old Scarface movie from the 30s or something. It has this sort of I'm gonna get you, Shane, kind of I don't know what it is. I think it's probably the horn or something, or that instrument. But this beat is okay. It's clearly a C-tier Primo beat. But with a few tweaks, someone could have made something dope out of this. Anyway, so there's that. The other one that was pretty good also was a beat called Trackhorn. It was all right. Again, this is very much when I heard it, I was like, yeah, I can see why this collector does, because this is not your ill as shit, But it goes to show you that even the stuff that isn't so great by Primo is still be better than most of these underground producers at that time, which is crazy, right? This was all right. Trackhorn, yeah, man. Anyway, so, and then the third place I would say, sort of another decent instrumental was, I think, called Wah. I mean, these titles aren't why the fuck they called it. Primo had these funny titles on them shits. Whatever. Anyway, so that was that. So volume 1, again, I listened to it at the time, right when it came out, and I was like, some of this is okay. I didn't love it, but I was, again, it's I appreciated that he put it out because I thought it was a great idea. Now, so Primo then comes with volume 2. Volume 2 to me has the best beat, right? Not NY State of Mind 2, because that kind of doesn't count, but has the best beat to me that came out of this entire series. And that beat is a beat called Epic-ish. The moment I heard this shit, I was like, who the fuck slept on this beat? Because this beat is phenomenal. This would make a great rap record. I felt this back then. It's just has a great feel, man. I like these kind of, Primo doesn't always make these kind of beats. Spit 6 reminds me, it's almost I don't know how to describe it. Almost some Legend of Zelda shit, it's kind of fantasy foresty. I don't know. Anyway, I loved it. I thought that this was far and away the best beat. And obviously it ended up becoming a fantastic record with Epic Dynasty. They face up. Down in the bay, but I remember where I came up. Because it made me put my hand and made me step my game up. Yo, she killed us. Shout out to Dynasty. Epic Dynasty and Primo, the boldest, the boldest, killed it. It was great. They did a great job with that song. It's a classic song, man. Instant classic. So I really liked Epic, and I thought that Epic-ish was the best beat, period. On volume 2, there was another one called Change. Let's see here. Yeah, this was okay. I don't think anyone spit to this. I could be wrong because part of me is like, did someone rap on this or not? Some of these songs ended up becoming like the Bisa Collective Volume, the Collective Dust ended up becoming songs that other people rapped on. I think Joel Ortiz spit on one of these. I forget the name, but the point is that this was okay. This was on Volume 2 called Change. So, yeah. So then I'm like, oh, Primo's doing Beats That Collective, Dust Volume 3. I'm there because again, you've dropped 2 volumes of decent material. Again, there's something that it's for the heads, like, you can create some sort of excitement because both volumes brought out some cool shit. Again, my expectations weren't super high and through the roof for it, but in both cases, they led to some great records. So I'm like, oh, volume 3, let's go. And I have to say, this wasn't good. Was I surprised that it's not good? Not really. I can't say I was surprised, but it was a little disappointing. But again, Primo is one of those people. He's given us so much quality stuff. He's been prolific, like the greatest hip hop producer in my opinion ever, and just a guy. He seems like a super cool dude. He's very generous with his time. It seems like it's always like Primo's a dude I would love to personally meet. Primo, like I just get a really good vibe from the dude. He just seems like a good artist, like, you know what I'm saying, like a really pure hip hop amazing artist. Even if I haven't necessarily liked his more recent output, like, first of all, I'll never slander Primo because the stuff he did for decades was phenomenal, and like I said, just seems like a cool cat. So going into this, it was like, okay, I saw volume 3, I was like 18 tracks. You already know how I feel once you start to have those numbers of tracks. Once you start getting to that 18, 19, 20 tracks, I'm like, this is probably going to be mid because, again, you don't need that many tracks to make an album. Illmatic has shown you that all you need is like 9 phenomenal songs, 10 phenomenal songs, I mean, if we include the intro. And you can make the greatest listening experience in hip-hop history. So why would I need 20 to pull this off? If you have 20, 25, that means that this is probably all mid and you're just throwing it out to get your streaming numbers up, and you don't really know what's hot on this, and that's a problem because you should know what's hot, right? So I'll go through step by step here on these beats, but again, I didn't really care for them, honestly. So they're all pretty Woo 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 was meh. Number 2, I think the song is called Really. Is that what it is? On Beats That Collective Dust Volume 3. This is not a great beat, but it does have a feeling. It evokes some sort of an atmosphere. And, it was okay-ish. But when I was listening to that, I was like, man, right away, I'm just like, this is Primo, not in his prime, C-tier stuff that people don't want from him, right? And it still has more feeling than anything I've heard from Nas and Hit Boy. That's the problem. So when you guys talk to me about, yo, Primo's washed and you shouldn't use him, that's why he's got to use Hit Boy, it's like, you're not a hip-hop fan. You're just a hater. You're like an online bully, like talking shit about something you don't understand. Anyway, moving on. So Kelly B, nah. The next one's 845 and Climax were boring as fuck to me. Here we go. This was too busy and kind of this weird retro vibe. I mean, in Primo's heyday, he might have been able to make this beat work, but it was too much, in my opinion, going on, and it was like, again, just a little too retro for me, but like not in a great way. So number 7 beats Sleep. Sorry, it's Haye, whatever. That shit was sleepy as fuck. But more of a harken back to Primo's old style. By the way, that is something, speaking of that I was a little bit curious about, because when Volume 1 and Volume 2 came out, they were both like in that time period where Primo was still doing his signature sound that we all love, and I wish he would just continue to do. If he wants to switch it up, it's like, come with something better or just continue it, because it's like that person that makes this apple pie a certain way, that's signature, that's classic, right? Like, it's always gonna work. right? Especially since nobody has outdone Primo. I mean, in the boom bap world, boom bap producers have not evolved past Primo, which is a huge problem. I've talked about this before, but the point is that Primo's sound is amazing. Like, his signature sound is incredible. It still holds the fuck up. So, like, to me, it's like, continue to do that. And I think that's even why we love Primo and respect him, is because he actually stuck to his signature sound for a very long time. But just made it interesting. Always found ways to kind of make it like something you would want to hear, right? That's what you need to do. So this was kind of like, I was wondering, in 1 and 2, his old style was still there, but now it's volume 3, it's like 10 years later. I'm not really a fan of the new Primo style. He's trying some stuff, and I'm like, it's not really hitting for me personally. So I was like a little curious about that. Like, how would these beats that collected dust, volume 3, how would they sound? Would they sound sort of like more of his old shit, or would it be like this new stuff that I'm just kind of like on, right? So essentially, it turns out that it's in fact more of a like mix of bags, right? So some beats are kind of older style, and some of them are more of the newer style that Primo has, like Barat, which I didn't care for. Moving on to Bogart, meh. The Can, number 10, is again more of the old style kind of Primo. The signature shit doesn't work. And then number 11, DLP, maybe, I don't know, in honor of Large Professor. I'm not sure what that's about. Again, another sort of older style beat, but doesn't quite work for me at all. Let's see here. Now, we have number 12, which is the DMX Bark and Growl. Oh yeah, the Bark and Growl beat, that's like DMX. This was undercooked. This was, I could see why. I mean, it's undercooked. And it's interesting, the way it was structured, even the way it was or whatever, it reminded me of like, it's all real. Yep. Like that kind of, it was almost sort of structured the same way. Anyway, nah, that was not a good beat. I didn't care for it. Space Them Mo, nah. Shiro, nah. Perk Pad could have worked maybe if it was just more done to it. And then the rest, Bobble, Inmo, episode 207, nah. So all in all, didn't care for the volume. This was easily the weakest volume of the 3. Here's what it is, these guys can't stay hot or forever. And like I said, it's no disrespect to them. I appreciate Primo putting it out. Hey, it's putting it out for free for people to listen. So I'm not knocking him at all. It just wasn't good to me. Now, I'll end on this. I have to wonder, for someone like Primo, who's at the Mount Rushmore of hip-hop producers, period, and especially of boom bap, right? Who is Primo inspired by these days? Really? You know what I'm saying? Who's the guy? Who's his North Star? You know what I'm saying? Like, in his day, Marley Marl was like his guy, right? Like, Primo has said this many times, that Marley Marl was the dude that was like his North Star, right? And obviously, Primo was learning from Mantronic and, why am I forgetting his name? The dude that did Houdini's records, Larry Smith, right? So he's picking up all this stuff, Rick Rubin, and all these great producers. And that's pushing him to do really great shit. And then RZA comes out the gate. RZA and Muggs come out the gate with this wild sort of like cinematic sound and all that. And that makes Primo, to a certain extent, want to go even harder. And that's when the real signature of Primo starts to come about, like Hard to Earn era, where he's like, I'm going to go and really strip my stuff down and make it even harder and weirder, which again is what we love about Primo. And that's when you started hearing the mass appeals and all that, the tons of guns or whatever, like that signature Primo sound that Primo rocked for like a good 20 years, right? That's still classic. So my point is, it was the older guys that he loved that were making amazing stuff that inspired him to get into the game and create great shit. And then it's his contemporaries, like the RZAs and the Muggs, who were coming out with new shit that's incredible. You're like, oh my God, I gotta step my game up, right? Who is Primo inspired by now? And I think that is part of the problem. I don't know Primo. I can't speak for Primo directly. He might say he's inspired by life in general, or he hears, I don't know, maybe some new Derringer or some shit, and he's like, I kind of like that. I'm going to try something different. But the point is this. I would argue that there isn't anybody on Primo's level in today's, obviously in today's game, who's new, who's even making something that could remotely compete, and that's part of the problem. And that's why I think Primo can kind of get lost in making these beats that don't really go anywhere, because art is a conversation. If you're not really getting a direct inspiration from somebody who's just as dope as you, and you want and pushes you to do the next level shit, stuff's just gonna get mediocre and weak. And I think that's what's been happening, honestly, with Primo stuff, unfortunately. Again, this is my opinion, but obviously I think rap has been very stagnant, and it's sad, but what can you do? You just have to mention it, and hopefully people pay attention, and people who are in a position to do something about it, do something about it. But anyway, much love to Primo, and look, man, it's Primo. Anytime Primo releases anything, I'll listen to that shit. Like, he's gotten a lifetime pass from me, okay? Until he does like, if he does like 6 straight MITS diseases or some shit, that's maybe when I'll be like, okay, all right, like enough is enough. But he hasn't even gone there yet, you know what I'm saying? So he's got a lifetime listener for me, if it means anything. I mean, I'm just some guy on the internet. But the point is, I love Primo. We'll always listen to his shit, but this new volume wasn't it. Peace and love, y'all.